the extension announced. Does this deal happen without your feeling that could have come to fruition?
I would be hard pressed to think we were going to give away, the assets and trade away the assets that we did without the belief that we could enter into an extension. Obviously, the timing is difficult, and you got to have some trust that your group's going to find common ground after the fact. But we were confident that in doing our due diligence that this would be a place that the Hampus would be excited to play in.
What kind of impact do you think Hampus is going to have on the back end?
Well, he's an all-situational player. I think carrying heavy minutes over the duration of his career up until this point, I think that extends into situations that we feel that we can continue to lean on. We've run through D every year and head into the playoffs and through the playoffs. So we have to have players that can probably step into those situational minutes. Our players currently, we're one of the teams that probably gives up one of the least amount of expected goals. So we've done a good job overall. But the depth, the impact that we needed and identified, that plenty of you have written about, was something we felt that we wanted to address.
When you bring him in, you kind of envision Hampus and McAvoy kind of potentially playing together as a pairing, just play big minutes together.
Again, that's ultimately Bruce's decision, the coaching staff's decision as to how he pairs guys up. I think some nights and some opponents, a long time ago with Seidenberg and Z, they just went out and locked down, part of half the game. I think that can exist that way, but how we spread it around, and again, it might be opponent driven, it might be situational driven, and the luxury is that we have players now that have versatility. Several have played on the right side as well, so hopefully we're going to stay healthy. And we won't test the depth further. But adding, Hampus was an important part of that.
Talked about the window for the team. Is this a move that propped that window open a little longer than had been expected?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have been around me long enough. I don't think there's necessarily a window of urgency to hit the accelerator. Since January and certainly since February, our team has played particularly well. And, we're in an incredible division right now, and there's no easy opponents, no matter where you're playing, no matter what the matchups, if we're fortunate enough to get in. So for us, you take the pulse of how the team is playing and how they feel and try and add to it if they're in a position to challenge. I think we'll, anybody that makes the playoffs in the East and the West is going to be a hard out no matter who you're playing. War of attrition generally plays out. I don't aspire. I think bringing a player of Hampus in the age and where he's at in his career, I think it's ideal for where our group is. So I don't aspire to the window part of it. I think the fact that we're going to sign him to, hopefully when we get it done, is a long term, and you realize that Charlie's signed long term, Brandon's signed long term. We've got foundational pieces that I think we're going to continue to be a really difficult team to play against.
Do you expect Jake to be here at the 3 o'clock?
Again, just going through the calls. As I either feel them or make them, and explore different ways to, not only like in terms of where I landed with Hampus and finding it, it's not easy to find deals, and you're seeing, players that move around, and there's some big players that are moving right now. So I'll continue to explore. I don't think Jake's changed his opinion, and but that doesn't mean it happens. And I've said that from day one. If I can make it fit for the Boston Bruins and helping our team, Jake's helping our team. So I certainly would only do it in the fact that what's going to help our team.
Jake aside, do you anticipate being more activity, being involved in?
I just don't know if you can ever predict it. Certainly the calls have picked up, in the last day or so, but certainly today and tomorrow will be a little bit more frantic, and people are sort of jockeying, done their due diligence as to teams that have been interested in circling back, because the market has moved, and supply and demand and prices, dictate that, and that's part of it. It's a difficult time of the year for everybody, players included, families included. So it doesn't go without recognition of those things that involve the humanity of the sport, but the deadlines generally drive deals. And you're seeing that more and more. I believe you're seeing that more and more in our sport, in our league, where you've got volume happening at maybe 2 or 3 times a year. So.
How much better this morning do you think your hockey team
Hopefully significantly in terms of adding to the depth of our group and a player of impact that Hampus is in all situations. Again, our group, our core, and even, I thank Urho for his, play with the Boston Bruins. And I wish him well going to Anaheim, as I do with John Moore and his health and recovery and getting back to playing. They were a big part of our group, contributing. And as I said, we're a team that defends really well. Can we continue to transition the puck a little bit better and get involved offensively a little bit more and push the needle? Because I think you have to find ways to score. Certain teams maybe score a little more easily than we do, but we've done a good job. And taking the pulse of that since, January, but in particular since February, our team has done a good job, and I think Hampus adds to that.
When did you get a sense that this was going to happen?
Yeah, you never get a sense. There's no spidey sense that this is going to take place. You just, you continue to make the calls, and you know that the same conversations you're having, he's having with other, in Pat's case, and working with Pat was outstanding. He's got plenty of experience having shotgun with Stevie Yzerman, so just continue communication as best you can. You just know if you're making a call, somebody else is, and the same calls are made outbound. So there's no tingly spidey sense that the deal's happening until it happens.
Would you want to move a Tina forward regardless of what happens with Jake?
We're looking at every possible situation to add to our group. I mean, obviously we've given up future assets, that affect decision making where I sit today in the next few days. But we're going to still continue to look and see if we can improve our team. We're comfortable where our team is at and how they're playing, injuries aside and the unknown. But yeah, I mean, I want to continue to explore it over the next 2 days.
Don, you mentioned the market has changed where perhaps prices have become more reasonable. What, in general, what triggers that transition to where more people can get it?
I mean, obviously some teams were aggressive. Calgary got out in front of some of the things they were doing. And, I don't know if I would call, we gave up a lot for Hampus, so I wouldn't say it's reasonable. I think we met what the ask was in order to acquire the play that we were looking for, and that's generally what drives the deals. Yeah, as you get closer to the deadline, teams, they've been jockeying and how much interest, they're gauging how much interest in their player, and then they decide if they meet that threshold. That's generally as we get closer to the deadline, those things happen. Whether or not they get exactly what they want, that's always to be determined in the conversations and the teams that are being aggressive.
And is Dave Krejci an option for you still?
No. He's decided to stay with his family in the Czech Republic.
Anything else? Do you have any tingly spidey sense that you close on some and one phone call might make a difference on something, getting something done like you did yesterday?
Dan, again, you make a lot of calls. This takes months in terms of leading up to it and who's available and teams that are still, in the hunt. And several of those teams, Anaheim was in the hunt. They're not even that far out, even though they've stumbled a little bit. So you just don't know who's going to reappear. So you have to circle back and be diligent about who you've spoken to, who you need to speak to, who's calling you, and circling back. That's just part of the business. And you do have some teams that are aggressive, teams that, like I said, got out in front and feel good about it, and other teams that are waiting to see where their own teams are, as we, we're doing through the months of January and February and into March. And you cross your fingers that the health of your club, stays as is or improves. It doesn't get worse.
And you make a commitment like that, 8 years to some of this, certainly says a lot about them. What made you make that commitment as far as what you see in him giving you for the next 8 years?
To be honest, I think it says a lot about both sides. It says a lot about the player wanting to come to an environment that he's going to feel comfortable in, and he's only known one other environment. So, he's doing his own due diligence and calling around and asking, what it's going to be like coming to the Boston Bruins and being there long term. It also speaks to the commitment, our ownership and Cam and Charlie and Mr. Jacobs in supporting, what we're trying to do as an organization and continue to improve every day. We ask our players, how invested are you? Because the organization is going to be, we're always going to match that. And we're hopeful that it's an equal fitting, and you move forward. We're appreciative of Claude Lemieux and handling the affairs and getting a contract done. He's well versed in our marketplace, so I think he's able to share some of the insights to his clients, and fortunate that we found common ground and be able to finalize an extension shortly. I would harbor to think I would have had a lot harder time. Now, again, you don't know that until after the fact. You just have to do your due diligence in terms of what that player may be looking for and the situation that he may want to walk into. You know, free agency is a unique period for players, and generally don't get there very often, especially when you're in the prime of your career and being an accomplished player. So I think you know the general marketplace that you're stepping into and the deal that you're going to have to present. And, you know, the ownership and has to be fully committed to that. So once those things happen, I think you feel good that if you present that to a player that's looking for a competitive environment, going into a locker room, you know, with a leadership group that we think so highly of, but also the next, you know, players and the emergence of Charlie McAvoy and having a chance to play with him and Brandon Carlos signed and Jeremy Swayman and you know, having good goaltending with Linus and he is a tandem. Those are all factors, but you just don't know until after the fact and you present it and sometimes you have to cross your fingers that the work you've done behind the scenes is going to be enough.